Yeah, so when we put together this presentation for you, we really wanted you to walk away with three basic things. Number one, what makes a trauma-informed organization, especially a human services organization, how is that different than other organizations? What is unique about it? What is the intention of it, right? And that's tied really, really heavily to why it's important. I loved the fact that of those that took that poll, almost half of you have put into place or have in place a formal trauma-informed plan and design, which I think is awesome. And then the rest of you are either thinking about it or you are have an informal plan, or you're just attending this session today because you want to know more about it. And that's really exciting to us. And then probably, most important is, how do you go about developing a trauma-informed, responsive organization? What does that look like to both the customers that you all serve in human services organizations, and what does it mean to your staff, right? Because we know that the impact of trauma is not just exclusive to the customers. It can often translate into secondary trauma that impacts your team and your organization. And so, what are some of the ways in which we can help both our customers and our staff? And what does that mean to provide trauma-informed services to customers? And I want to just share with you the title for this session. It starts off with crisis care. And oftentimes that can infer that it's a very reactionary thing. We've got someone or a family in crisis, and we go in and take care of them. But in my view, should be much more expansive than that. It's got to be holistic. It's got to be crisis care that's not just reacting to current trauma, but it's proactive and recognizing that we can, as human service organizations, take steps to design our agency and our policies and our practices around avoiding re-traumatization of families. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so what is a trauma-informed organization? I like to think of it in three basic chunks, right? The first is got to be knowledge. In order to have a trauma-informed organization, the organization, the agency, and the team itself have got to have a basic understanding of the role that trauma and violence play in the lives of the people that we're providing assistance to, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. Going back to the quote that we had on that very first slide, violence and trauma are much more pervasive than we initially thought it was. And so it's really something that is impacting so many Americans, and certainly the population that are served by human services organizations. The second piece of what a trauma-informed organization is, I like to think in terms of, it can't just be knowledge in a vacuum. It's got to have practical implications. And it's so important to have an organization that really can identify with and recognize the signs and the symptoms of what's going on in the families that we're serving. And then finally, it's a call to action. It's not only being reactive, it's being proactive by having and forming and perpetuating a very successful trauma-informed organization in which you're putting into practice everything that we know into the policies and the procedures and the practices to avoid the re-traumatization of, again, of the families, the very vulnerable families that we all serve.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that we saw from our earlier poll is that most of us that are together this afternoon are either formally or informally kind of trauma informed and consciously, intentionally being trauma informed. And I want to you might see the wording on this slide. As Diane and I were kind of putting this together, thinking that that whole emphasis on being trauma informed has been around for a while now, I mean, a decade. And I really see a shift in our culture that, we can be informed and we know that there's more to it than this. And I think one of you commented your response to the quote is that we know that the trauma impacts our experiences and our perception of what's happening. So not only do we want to be informed, but we want to be responsive. The other thing I want to note is that all of us are here to kind of get tips and ideas and strategies from each other. But before we kind of get that ball rolling into what do we need to do, we really purposely want to step back and sit with the why for a little while. And in just a few minutes, we're going to break you up into small groups, and we're going to really dig deep into the why. Why is it important for staff to be able to work in a culture that truly is trauma responsive? And I want you to think about it in the ideal world, because we're all growing and learning about being more trauma responsive, doing our own work first. But why is it important for staff? And then group number 2, you're going to take a deep dive in what's different. Why do we want to champion our agency as one that is truly responsive? Why? And then the third group, we have leadership here, but I'm not sure kind of some of the positions, if some of you, as a director, as a supervisor, as a leader that is the face for your agency, or why is it important to you that you can say with integrity that we have a trauma responsive organization? Are learning, we are growing, we are aspiring to be a stronger and better trauma responsive organization. Then the fourth group, I think all of us know this better today than we ever had before. There's no one agency that can absolutely make a difference in the life of a family by themselves. We just can't do it. We need community partners. And the more we have community partners, the safer we are making our communities. So it's really a lot more than what any agency. So it's just that whole collaboration with others. So the 4 teams, first one, why for staff. Second one, why for families. Third, why for leaders. And fourth, why for community partners. So the other thing we want you to do, because this is a small enough group when you break out, I think you'll have a chance to see each other. So what we'd like to have you do is to take a look in the upper left-hand corner of your screen and see if you can turn your camera on. And so as you go into the groups, what we're hoping will happen is that you'll have a chance to see each other. And if you will, have somebody in your group kind of take notes, but come up with be ready to come back in about 5 minutes to share your top 2 reasons. All righty? Chad, were you going to actually do this, or do you want me am I supposed to do this? Let me just.
We're the only ones not in breakout right now.
Okay. Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah, so if you want to jump around, just go to the yellow bar and hit manage breakout, and then you can hit join 1, join 2, join 3, join 4, so you can see what's going on.
And Chad, when Diane and I were practicing this, we didn't have anybody in the breakouts. Can we both simultaneously go into 2 separate rooms?
Yeah, go help yourself, run around.
All right, I'm going to go into 4 and Diane's going to go into 1. Thank you.
You bet.
There. Oh, I was just going to ask how much longer. Is that the timer?
Yeah, it's time. You ready?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Here they come.
All right. Looks like we've got everyone back.
Perfect.
It was super fun.
Well,
Okay.
and I loved how many people had their cameras on, so they really,
Yes.
I'm at East Coast time, so 4:00 in the afternoon, it's a little bit like, oh, maybe a little coffee break, and you still turned your cameras on, so thank you.
All right. So do we hear some report outs from the different groups? And Chad, if we actually wanted to have, someone from group one provide, 1 or 2 or 3 takeaways from that discussion, is that possible to do?
Diane, are you asking, can we see them?
I was going to ask if we could hear them.
Oh.
But I'm not sure.
And
if not, I did take some notes with regard to the 2 rooms that I checked in with. But I'm sure I cannot be as articulate as the folks in the actual room. Okay. All right. Let's see. Promote them to live. Okay.
Oh, is he telling you what to do?
Yeah, I think so.
You can make them live to use their camera. What does that mean? Let me see. Okay. Oh, so I see the little button. So is there somebody from staff? Who's going to report back from the staff? Do you know, Diane, who that reporter would be?
Amy.
That should be at the top. Amy Shelton?
I believe so.
You're live, Miss Shelton. You're live.
Can you hear me? I'm live.
You're
Open
live.
mic night. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yes. Uh-huh.
All right. So people said a lot of great things, and then I started typing some notes on the whiteboard, but I don't have those. So maybe people can jump in because I don't want to miss all the good stuff. But I think part of it was just,
I think I can take notes now while you're talking. So this is a new, yeah.
A new one. Okay. I was like, I'm not seeing the notes. But we talked about just helping to mitigate that secondary trauma. So kind of being aware, one, that we're going to be experiencing that vicarious or that secondary trauma, figuring out how we're going to support each other so we can show up and be really intentional when we're working with folks and we're hearing their trauma, being aware of our own trauma, how that might impact our communication, and really being more aware of when people are responding in a way that maybe we don't understand or is different than the way that we maybe would respond, that it could be because of trauma that they've experienced. Helping us be more empathetic, and if we do anything right, not to do any harm. So having that awareness can help us be intentional and be more empathetic and understanding, and really kind of adjust and modify our response, how we're communicating with folks.
Wonderful. Thank you. And do we have a spokesperson for the second group, families? Why is it important to families to be willing and able to work with an agency that really champions themselves as a trauma responsive organization? So, Chad, we turn live off Amy and on to somebody else. Do we know, Diane, do you know the spokesperson for 2?
I didn't because they were so active. I never got to ask, but I do. I know that Peter was in that room, and he was one of the active participants, but they all were. So if you want to use, Mary nominates Peter. Okay, there we go.
I'll look for you, Peter. I'll see what I can find. Peter. And actually, in preparation of groups 3 and 4, if you could put in the chat who's going to be your spokesperson, and then I can be a little, maybe, be a little proactive in that. Peter, I'm trying to find your name.
Okay, so I found him and I made him live.
Thank
there
you.
we go.
Always pick on me. I know.
I know.
I think in our room we hit on 3 major points that I remember. Number one, when we're dealing with these families, we need to come from a trauma-informed perspective, not ask what's wrong with this family, but what has this family been through? That's the first point. Second point, how did they get through that bad stuff that happened? Where are their strengths? What do they have that we could hang a case plan on? Where's the hook we can hang a hat on? And number 3, we need to put all our bureaucratic stuff aside, and we need to listen. We need to let them talk and listen to them. They know their story a lot better than we do, so we need to put our bureaucracy and our ego on hold and just let them talk. I'll be quiet now.
That's great. Thank you so much, Peter.
Listen. Listen.
Okay.
Do we hear from 3, the leader one? As a leader, why do you feel proud to be guiding a trauma responsive organization?
Okay. It looks like Karen Lenore is the spokesperson for number 4. So I don't know number 3 yet.
All right, let's jump to 4 since we have that.
So I'm trying to click live for Karen and it's not working. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Over there?
Yeah.
And I think I saw Marjorie self-nominated herself for group 3, but I might have misread that in the chat. So we had community and we spoke to the importance of acknowledging that there are specific traumas that some of our community partners may go through. For instance, the racial trauma that we've become more and more aware of this past year, and how it's significant to create a true collaboration to be able to have that be a part of the conversation and our awareness. And then additionally, just talking about how when we have these partnerships, if we're all operating with some similar language and understanding around trauma awareness, trauma-informed care, then we're creating a true network and a collaboration where we can be helpful to our families.
Excellent.
So team 4, chime in if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, help me with the third one. You really need true collaboration to acknowledge. I'm sorry, I was not listening as well as I needed to.
So so acknowledging community partners may have specific ones, and then for the true collaboration to create a real network of care for us to have similar language and understanding about trauma. So we're all operating that way with our community partners.
I love it, love it, love it, love it. Yeah, perfect. Great. And group number 3, the leaders. The leaders. Well,
And so I think in the chat, someone had that you had self-nominated.
oh, that's Karen. 3. Well, actually, I nominate Peter. All right. Somebody for 3, the leaders? I'll share. I was in part of that group, so I certainly will hear, and I would hope that others would kind of jump in. But one of the things that I kind of gave an example of work in another state, in that where there's a real commitment of learning and growing together in a really trauma responsive way, is that it really impacts staff retention. And I think now when we take a look at all that's happening, how much our world of serving others has changed in these last few months, I think it's even more aware of really seeing what we can do to take care of staff, so it impacts that staff retention.
Okay, it looks like Lori Cross, may want to share something, but I am having a trouble getting her to be live. Okay. Chad, is that something you can help me with? All right. Not having any success in getting.
Oh, wait, I will try this.
Okay.
Yeah. Laura, we can't get you live. Wonder why. Well, and maybe we just open this up to the group. They had some, for those of you just to type in the chat, we just maybe take another minute. When you think of a leader of an agency, why is it important for them to think about being a trauma responsive agency? You have the impact on staff, but why else? Anybody? Just because it's so hard with people not being able to talk, but I'll tell you, it really impacts data. And I know people will sit there and say, data is absolutely important, because it does, where there's improvements in data, there's often better outcomes for families. And at the same, so if we're making, if we're really improving family outcomes, we know there's a better chance to have funding, better chances to stand up for grants and say, Cal, look at what we're doing here. We are making a difference. I think as everything is really moving to that prevention and that evidence-based, leaders that really take a look at, are we making a difference in the lives of family? Are we making a difference in the lives of staff? That's the pathway we want to be on. So I'll kind of add those two. And Diane, did you see anything else in the chats that?
Yeah, so there was, a parallel process comment. I think along the lines you were saying, it's not only beneficial for the staff, it's beneficial for the families that are being served by the staff. And Don said that it does help keep the staff's trauma from affecting the customers. Here we got lots more. Okay. We've got from Ms. Johnson, it has an impact on the service delivery to the family units. Great. Lori has to provide supportive leadership. Okay. And Amy has provide needed support. If you take care of the people, they will take care of your business, which is other people. Talking about it takes the shame out of it and normalizes. It's something we all go through and creates a way to be supportive. Yeah, and Peter says helps us build on our strengths for better outcomes. And Bridget says helps us better assist our clients who struggle mentally. So all really great. Better connection with staff. Awesome. Okay, I think we got some really great responses.
Yay. Yay. All right. I'm going to, oopsie, I'm going to go back to this.
Okay.
So something that we wanted to do with the time that we have, and I'm going to just have you think a little bit, because so many of you are really either formally or informally aware of being trauma informed or trauma responsive. We just wanted you to do like a little bit of a check on, oops, what is that kind of, to check on, where's out your agency? What is your agency really seeing or doing? And so we're going to do a poll. And so I'm going to bring up this poll, and we're in the poll, just for those of you who have see this, I mean, I've seen this before, maybe not aware of it, but this SAMHSA put this out a few years ago that it's really just been very helpful to say, these are principles that anyone can use in any organization. And one of the things that I love is that there's this bank in one of the regions that I work in, that they came in with these 6 guiding principles, and they said, what does it look like as a bank for us to be able to really say and do and demonstrate these 6 principles? And so they had a whole group of people that said, if I'm going into my bank, how do I know that there's safety, there's trustworthiness? And so they developed this whole commitment to have a trauma-informed approach, modeling and demonstrating these 6 principles. So let's jump into the poll. If you give me a minute, and what you're going to do is just measure how consistently, how consistent, obviously there's 6 questions since there's 6 principles. So take a look, how consistently does your, yay, look at that. And we purposely broaden that, and some of you may be using that, broaden safety to be moral and social as well. Because I think, what is the integrity in your agency? What is tolerated? Is it okay to kind of use slang? Is it okay to swear? So morally, what is the culture in your community, in your organization? I love it. Oh, we're doing so well with staff.
Yeah.
All right. There's, again, kind of no right or wrong. We just wanted you to kind of put your finger on the pulse of, if I was to walk into your organization or experience your service delivery, what would these principles look like? And so food for thought. I'm going to actually end the quiz because I know, Diane, one of the things we want to do is to really jump into some of the, what's it look like really for you to create that really trauma-informed system? So Diane, I'm going to hand it up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. The first 3 steps really are the preparation. If you don't have a trauma-informed service system and you want one, or if you have one and quite frankly, you're just playing lip service to it, these are the first steps that you really, we believe are instrumental to getting there. And, the very first step there's got to be a commitment. It's got to be a commitment from the top administrators all the way down to the staff. From the top, it's got to be a commitment to the resources that it takes to become a trauma-informed agency. We all know it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen overnight. And it's something that's got to have constant and continual push and recognition for. So, that's got to be the very frank first thing that you've got to assess is, do we have that commitment, again, from the top down? And part of what, regardless of your position in your organization, the research really does support the effectiveness of having a trauma-informed, trauma-receptive service system. And so really, making that case, hopefully, as we saw, you've got, I think 47% of you already have the trauma-informed systems. And so, you're already there, but there was the majority that didn't either have anything formally or was still thinking about it. Step 2 really is, do you have the capacity in your organization to, do a change management, to do an organizational change that really from the top down is looking at the services that you're providing, how you're providing the services, what are your policies, what are your practices, and ascertaining those from a trauma-informed lens, right? Or re-looking at them from a trauma-informed lens. What do you have going on now? And then I think probably 3 is just a really crucial step, because we know that the most valuable voices that you can tap into when you're considering how to change to become more trauma-informed is going to be the key stakeholders that have experienced trauma. It's the customers that you serve, and providing them from the very beginning with a voice and a perspective that you can take to the drawing table when you're looking at, how does this change look? Having them there to give you that frank reaction and perception to, what does your child welfare agency look, not from internally, but from someone that had a child removed from their care or someone that is going through services. That's a really, really important piece of this that is going to help transform your organization into something meaningful when we talk about trauma-informed, family service systems. Let's go. Okay, so Marge, you want to capture what we want from this exercise?
Absolutely. Diane, I'll tell you, one of the challenges is with our time.
Yeah.
I'm a little partial to small groups. Tell me what you think. Chad is suggesting maybe we take everybody off mute and we try to have people go live and just talk about these 3 questions.
Yeah.
Hey, but Chad, would we be getting that kind of feedback if we do? And as Chad's kind of circling up with this is, you can see from the slide really where we're going with this. We love this 3rd step. And, for those of you that have done some human-centered design, there's nothing that's a bigger bang for your buck than you get. And the words in and of itself say, when you are not designing something for somebody, rather you are designing something with them. And so I would really say to you, how are you really capturing the voices of those you serve? What are some of the ways you do it? Somebody mentioned in their chat that their agency's got a lot to do. I think step 1 is how do you find ways to capture the voice of customers? So we'd like to hear from you. How are you doing that? Surveys, focus groups, cafes, whatever. So we want to hear from you. The second question we have is, how do you really, really demonstrate giving choice to customers? Do you talk the talk, but what does it look like to walk the walk? Are families' voices really selecting services, using informal services, or are they directed to something that you think is really good for them? And then the third is, how do you really create and honor a human-centered design? So let's do this. Diane, what are you thinking as a large group?
Yeah, if we've got the ability to take everyone and have everyone have a camera and voice, I think that would be great. Otherwise, we can do the breakout groups.
We can make everyone live to talk as long as they hit the camera in the upper left. Then we can manually make them live only. Raise your hand to talk.
Great.
If I'm understanding this. Does everybody make that sense? If everybody can go that upper left-hand corner. and we can make people live.
There you go.
Is that
All right.
Yay. Okay, so then I'm going to just put up the whiteboard because I'll read the questions to you. Oops. Diane, I'm happy to type. If you can kind of keep an eye on if people are raising their hands.
Sure, yeah.
I should ask Chad, is it okay for me to be typing as well, or I'd rather see people than use the whiteboard. Can we do that?
Yeah, and those of you that want to unmute yourself, I've got Peter unmuted. But it looks like everyone else is, and I'm not able to unmute you. So if you can try to do that. Amelia, I've got you for a voice. And Stacia, I've got you for a voice. So if you're willing to share, just go ahead and shout out some things for Marge to put up on the whiteboard. So how do you think either you're doing it currently to give your customer a voice, or do you think some good ideas that you would want to share?
Well, currently we just did a huge training of all of the staff, and we spoke for a long period of time on how we are going to engage the parents in the discussion of their service plan, and we also trained them on changing the service plan when the investigator puts together this really quick service plan and it's more generic.
Mm-hmm.
We've given them the training on how to change the service plan, whereas before, historically, we wouldn't change the service plan, and it wouldn't be according to really what they said, what the parents said. It's kind of like what the investigator saw. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one of the great things that we just did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
One of the things that we're doing is we ask our customers to provide an evaluation. So that way we're getting feedback from them in terms of what went wrong and what went right in an interview, and also what would better support them.
Great.
I do a lot of work with youth, and part of what I do is I do focus groups with the youth so that I'm getting a very clear youth voice and understanding what the youth need from all of this, especially those that are getting ready to age out, doing transition plans and trying to figure things out in this crazy world.
Mm-hmm. Great. So Kelly shared that our agency uses engagement meetings with many of our divisions, including child welfare and Head Start, and our benefits team uses evaluations. Great.
I'll share. This is Luann. Our agency has certified quite a few of us in training mental health first aid and bridges out of poverty, and that was offered, of course, before the pandemic, was offered widely across the board to all of staff, and I think that really helps the department as a whole when it comes to creating, awareness and honoring our clients and bringing a voice to our clients that aren't able to maybe speak up or aren't able, we don't know their story. Mm-hmm. So really bringing the human side to our department.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Diana shared that focusing on diversity with our hiring, the people making internal changes and decisions should reflect the communities we are making decisions for. Excellent.
I'll share. Our agency is in the process of developing a family stabilization unit. So they're working with different agencies within the community so that everyone can come together and pool their resources and begin looking at families from a holistic perspective. And so that is in the works currently to help address some of those issues that may resort from trauma in the family. So as we said earlier, you're just not looking at the now, you're looking at that full picture of how they got there and what resources they need to make progress.
Excellent.
And can I ask where you're calling in from that's doing the Family Stabilization Unit? What?
Columbus, Ohio, Franklin County Department of Job and Family Services.
Excellent. So should we maybe ask folks, where do you demonstrate that you are giving a voice to the customers? And I think we're touching upon it in the discussion with capturing the voice, or chime in on, how do you create and honor a human centered design in your program?
This is Stacia again. So in our Safe Family Home Report, we just recently changed the Safe Family Home Report. And in the Safe Family Home Report, there is a section to talk about in-home service plans and exactly how we engage the parents and what were their what are their roles into what they need to do, what they're comfortable in doing in order for us to return the children. And also in Hawaii, we have a youth group called High Hopes, and they put together several years ago legislation that passed that it's called some kind of Bill of Rights for foster kids. And so there is also a section in the Safe Family Home Report that if that the worker needs to talk about them going over this self-esteem building or the Bill of Rights for the kids in foster care, age appropriate.
Excellent. And in the chat, we piloted and are now expanding a voluntary self-assessment that individuals can share how they're feeling, what they value, what would help them the most, and what goals they have in mind, as well as getting started toward those goals. Okay. And again, from Melanie, our self-assessment allows families the opportunity to be the expert of their lives. Any others?
So Pennsylvania uses, and I know other states do too, but family engagement strategies. So family group decision making, family group conferencing, youth transition conferences, family finding with blended perspectives meetings, and trying to really pull the families together to identify ways that they can support the situation that they're in and find those strengths and find those cornerstones that they're able to have that voice, as opposed to me coming in and telling them, here's what you need to do, them telling us, here's what we're going to do as a family to resolve.
This is Amy. Feedback. This is Amy. I'm from Oregon, and last several years we've really had a big push on engagement model, working with families. I think Colleen, kind of like you said, ensuring that people know that we're really the secondary player, and it's really a partnership, using motivational interviewing skills to really identify what's important to the family, and then working with them at their pace. What is it that they want to work on? Where do they need to start? Everybody is not going to start at employment. We tried that for a long time, and it was trying to meet the program needs, not the person's needs. So taking a more holistic approach, taking a look at family goals, employment goals, educational goals. So we've really opened up the options. And then just doing a lot of like reflective listening, summarizing, checking in with folks about how they want to spend their time. Maybe they come in for one thing and that was kind of the plan or what we had put down, but it switches based on their needs. So really, we're kind of following their lead, explaining what the program asks for. It's kind of that two-part program with the TANF program, right? So the cash piece of it, but there's also that as long as they're working and receiving the benefits, we're going to be here to really support them and partner and working on what their goals are. So that's really been our focus.
Excellent. Thanks, Amy. Okay, anyone else? All right. So Mars, let's go back out to the PowerPoint. We've got we have one I want to share, Amelia's. We tracked the centers where there were incidents attributed to trauma and hired social workers for each of the top 5 centers. Social workers can intervene and or initiate interaction to set a respectful tone and engage the client. Okay, excellent. Thank you.
I think there's a handout that is available to you that lists all 8 of these steps, but I think Diane and I were a little partial to this third one of saying, we can put the best structure in place, best intentions, and if this number 3 is minimized, we're just working harder. And that little phrase, we're working harder, not smarter. So I love some of these ideas. And Diane, from my computer, we have about 3 minutes left.
Okay. All right. So let's, I'm going to talk really fast. No, and these slides are available to you. So step number 4, after you do all the preparation, this is what you're looking for, right? You've got things in place that you're, routinely screening for trauma from the folks that you're serving. You're really using cutting edge, evidence-based, culturally responsive assessment and treatment for the stress. The resources have to be available to the families, to the children, to your staff, right? And you really want to make sure that you are engaged in efforts to strengthen the resilience and the protective factors of children and families that are impacted by trauma. You want to address the trauma on your parents and caregivers and emphasize continuity of care. And I'm going to go to the next slide, which further highlights that collaboration between providers and consumers and service providers, because I really do believe that a true trauma-informed care is about that collaboration that you're going to have with other service providers. We don't want to have an organization that's responsive, right? Someone's in a crisis or dire need, go to this organization. It's more proactive, looking at and really listening to the families, as you all said, what they need and providing it proactively, because you have those relationships with those community partners and other agencies. The step 6 and step 7 is you want to make sure that it's working. It's not just lip service. And we talked a little bit about how you made sure that parents actually were not re-traumatized and that we're getting good services through those assessments that so many of you shared, which I think are just awesome. And then finally, we all know, right, that in order to take care of the customers that we serve and the important jobs we all do, we've got to have an emphasis on self-care.
And I'll just add to that, I just hope that each of us on this call, but each of us in our day-to-day work just has that person that has your back, that can hold that mirror up for you to say, am I really modeling what I'm saying? Or is my modeling, that parallel process you talked about, am I modeling something different? Because we each, on this call, we each have our own work to do. And I think that's what I love about this focus is I have a great lived experience person who will hold that mirror up to my face and she'll call me on it. What I need.
Yeah. And that just goes back to why we thought it was so important to have a trauma-informed organization, was the effect that it has on the staff, the positive effect it has on the staff, and retention and mental health, and allowing our staff to do the great job they do every day.
And Diane, I think we've got some of these, and I'm thinking we got some great ones earlier.
Yep.
Which is kind of our thank you. But Chad, our whiteboards, do people have access to the whiteboards and the polling after this? Oh, he sent me a little message. Let me see. He's checking into about the polls, and we'll ask him about the whiteboards. But you'll see our slides. You'll see a handout of the 8 steps. And we can't thank you enough.
Yeah, it's been great conversation. Really appreciated you all being interactive. We wish we could be there in person, but this was as good as it can get from a virtual perspective. So thank you.
Thank you for who you are and what you do day in and day out. And we will get those 2 questions answered, whiteboard and polling for you. Be well.
Thanks, everyone.